Hi, I'm Maddie, and it's story time. I'm going to be reading to you Good Night Duke by Ronald Kid. Let's see. A long time ago in the kingdom of Scone lived a duke named, Duke. He was tall and green and handsome. In fact, he was probably a lot like you, if you're a cucumber. The Duke of Scone lived in a castle at the top of the hill. Right down the road lived his best friend Petunia and her mother-in-law Nona. Nona complained a lot, but not Petunia. She was known as the sweetest girl in the kingdom. She loved to bake cookies, cakes, and pies. All of them were sweet, but Petunia was sweeter. On the other side of the kingdom lived a really, really, really mean knight. His name was Bump, and he was so mean that he didn't have any friends. He was so mean that his dog wore armor. He was so mean that his mother called him Sir. Bump lived a rotten life. The only thing he enjoyed was competing in duels, and he was very good at it. Now, Duke loved to throw parties. He and the knights at the square table would water ski in the moat and play quartet on the lawn. Petunia would serve cookies. Nona would complain. One day, while riding by Duke's castle, Bump saw something that made him angry. The people at Duke's party were laughing and playing and having fun. Bump never had fun, and he didn't want anybody else to either. So he yelled, "Duke, I challenge you to a duel. I'll stop these silly parties once and for all." There will be 3 events: pie stirring, donut tossing, and pastry pulling, Bump said. Duke knew he had to face Bump. "I accept the challenge," Duke said nervously. The word spread quickly, and people immediately began preparations and started to make signs to announce the duel. The winner would receive the most prized trophy of all, the golden spatula of Scone, and the loser would have to stop throwing parties forever. Despite his nervousness, Duke started to train. He coached by the knights of the square table and their leader, Otis the Elevated. Otis watched Duke train and shook his head. "You call that pie stirring?" But Duke was determined, and he improved on his gesturing, tossing, and pulling. He even got in a little water skiing, too. Finally, the big day arrived. The stadium was filled with fans, or as they liked to be called, Sconeheads. Duke came to the stadium, and the Sconeheads cheered. When Bump entered, they booed. The first event was pie stirring. The knights got ready. The horses ran towards one another. The Sconeheads cheered. Duke turned away to look at his loyal fans. Big mistake. Wham, pow, splat. The next thing he knew, Duke was lying on his back. The bad news was he had lost the event. The good news was there was pie on his face. It was banana cream. Yum. Bump looked down at Duke and laughed. Score 1-0, Bump bragged. The next was donut tossing. Otis made the donuts for this event himself. You could break your tooth on one of those, Otis laughed. Besides being hard, the donuts were so heavy that Duke could barely lift them. Meanwhile, Bump tossed them around like pebbles. In fact, he tossed one so hard it accidentally missed its target and hit Duke in the forehead. Guess who won the event? Bump laughed. Score 2 for Bump in the night, 0 for the Duke. There's one event left, pastry pulling. Duke was determined to win, but he was hungry and he had a pounding headache. In the stands, Nona turned to Petunia to complain, but Petunia had left. Seeing that Duke was in trouble, she had decided to help. How, you ask? The way she always helped, by baking. Petunia had gone home, whipped up a peanut butter and tuna pot pie, and hurried back to the stadium. Handed Duke the pie. As Duke ate, he noticed that Bump was sitting by himself. Bump looked mean as usual, but he also looked sad and lonely. Duke took the pie over and sat down next to Bump. Would you like some? Asked Duke. Bump looked at him. Then he did the most amazing thing. He started to cry. That's the nicest thing anyone had ever said to me, he blubbered. Good night, Duke. You're a good knight, Duke. Duke said, Maybe so, but you're a strong knight. Bump shook his head. I'm not strong. You're the only one who's strong, because you're nice. From now on, I'm going to try to be strong like you. Duke and Bump finished the pot pie, then they went out and pulled pastry. Bump won, of course, and was awarded with the golden spatula. Bump could have been mean about winning, but instead he invited everyone to a party at Duke's castle. Because of Duke, Bump the Knight had learned how to be strong, not by being mean, but by being nice. Otis, who was watching, leaned over to Nona. You know, I always liked that Bump the Knight. Nona, who was eating a piece of pie, tried to complain, but she couldn't come up with a single one. The end. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you the last part of the book. It says, 1 Thessalonians 5:15. Make sure that nobody pays back one wrong act with another. Always try to be kind to each other and to everybody else. Make sure to to stay kind and to stay in touch with God. Bye.